All right, so the long awaited wait is over. We have the blog update on the 60-day plan, and we're going to bring it to you right now. Now, I'm going to start off, and you know that I'm not a big fan of negativity, and I try and be very positive. I am a little disappointed with what we got here. I thought we were going to get a much bigger update with a little bit more in depth information rather than what we did get, but we're going to go over what we did get and kind of talk about how it's going to impact the game. So this is the first half, and yes, I quite literally mean half. It's only about 2 paragraphs here. So it's been a couple of weeks since we committed to our 60-day plan, and our team has been hard at work refining the gameplay experience, addressing your concerns by doing in-depth reviews and adjustment of various systems, from weapons balancing and enemy behavior to overall game mechanics. We are fully committed to ensuring Helldivers 2 meets the high standards we all expect. We see the Steam reviews and we hear you loud and clear. We're excited to share more details about our upcoming update, which will include significant changes aimed at refining and improving your experience in Helldivers 2. This includes, we are reworking armor penetration, anti-tank weapons, and enemy armor and health values. As a key part of the rework, we have done an initial balancing pass over 30 weapons and stratagems. We are overhauling a number of different enemies to make them feel more rewarding to kill when you use the proper tools and handle them, but ensure they feel formidable. Enemy bots, including Hulks, will have lower armor, and the number of rockets fired by enemies like the Devastator and Gunship will be limited, making combat more balanced. The armor values of particular tough bug enemies like Chargers, Impalers, and Bile Titans will also be reduced. Weapons such as the autocannon, heavy machine gun, and anti-material rifle will be more effective, providing greater loadout versatility. We are also working towards additional improvements for the flamethrower weapons. We're taking this opportunity to consider new player-based fantasies and design goals for these weapons and stratagems based on the feedback we've received and the trends we're observing during gameplay. So what does all this mean? Well, we don't know for certain because, of course, we don't have any of this information in front of us, but we can speculate based on what we've seen in the past and what the community has been asking for and seeing if we're truly going to get what we want. So the armor penetration with anti-tank weapons, especially with them saying autocannon, heavy machine gun, and anti-material rifle will be more effective, providing more versatility. To me, this means two things. One, the anti-tank weapons are going to do much more damage, which is what people have been asking for, things like one-shotting Chargers or taking down Bile Titans even in one shot. But I think with the armor penetration rework, especially because they mentioned the autocannon, the heavy machine gun, and the anti-material rifle, I think this means we're going to see certain other weapons are still going to do damage. It might not be as much, like certainly the autocannon should not one-shot a Charger. However, even if the Charger is not cracked, I think this means that those 3 weapons in particular are going to be able to take down Chargers, Behemoths, and maybe even Bile Titans, even if it takes a little bit more ammo than regular. And if that's true, that is a spectacular change. As we've talked about so many times, the way with design philosophy and how the game is built right now, basically everyone feels the need to bring anti-tank because you're going to be facing 10, 20 Chargers, sometimes 3 to 5 at a time, plus Bile Titans. So everyone feels a need to bring that, but then you get overwhelmed with all the chaff because no one wants to bring things like the Stalwart because it can't do anything against half the enemies you're going to be running into, and it doesn't feel good to be just running in circles waiting for your allies to hopefully help you. But if some of these other guns can fill that role, even again if it's not at 100% effectiveness, what this means is that you can more safely take things like the Stalwart or the Grenade Launcher or other guns that you enjoy, while your allies might be able to take guns that they enjoy and still be able to deal with some of these heavy armors. Overall, we don't know, of course, for sure, but I think that is a good change overall. I know a lot of people are going to be worried about the 30 weapons and stratagems overlook because everyone has this kind of view of negativity that every time they balance past the weapons, they're just going to nerf a whole bunch of them. But remember, not long ago, we did get a stratagem rework and people absolutely loved it, where they made the sentries more useful, they made rocket pods more useful, they made orbitals more useful. So there were some really good changes in there. So if they stick to a bunch of buffs or changes to these weapons that make them more unique and make them fill their niches better, I think that we're going to see a great change with that. I'm very hopeful. Again, I know people are not hopeful, but I think they're going to do it this time. I think it's going to be like that last patch where, yes, there's 1 or 2 things that get brought down a little bit, but overall it's a net win for most stratagems. Point number 2. Devastators and gunships will be limited in how many rockets they can fire, which should limit the amount of ragdolling effect, but that's not what we asked for. that's only a partial fix, and it doesn't fix the core issue because there's still things like the Impaler that's rocketing people to the moon, that's flinging them across the map, that's causing you to constantly be stun locked. The ragdolling overall is the part that people are really frustrated with. Yes, the Devastators and gunships with the rockets contribute to that, but this is a bandage and not an actual proper solution to it. And this is one of those problems that I've personally had, and I know a lot of people had, where you have all the samples, the Impaler will grab you and throw you off the map, and all of a sudden all your samples are gone. All that hard work is wasted. Or you've got 3 or 4 chargers on you, and they'll knock you over, and then another one will run over you and fling you around, and then before you can get up, another one will run over you and fling you around. So I would like to see something a little bit more when it comes to this, particularly something like heavy armor reduces ragdolling by 50 or 75%. It doesn't have to be for everything, but I think there needs to be an option to reduce the ragdolling because I know it is a huge problem for most of the community. I'd like to see it either removed or changed in such a way that it doesn't happen over and over. Maybe like a diminishing return sort of thing. Something like, okay, you were just ragdolled, so now you're resistant to it, or it can't happen again for 3 seconds, or something just to create a barrier to those situations where it happens back to back to back to back, and you're suffering and you can't control your character for 15 or 20 seconds, and then you're flung off the map and you lose all the samples. We're not surprised about the armor value reduced for Chargers, Impalers, and Bile Titans. We knew that was coming. They did say there was a Charger rework. I don't know if that is considered to be their rework, just reducing their armor, but if we're buffing armor penetration, buffing anti-tank weapons, and reducing their armor, it should do more damage. I don't know if that's going to be enough, but it should at least limit the problems with Chargers. We also see improvements for flamethrower weapons. I do think it's interesting that they'd say flamethrower weapons overall, because everyone knows that the big thing was the flamethrower stratagem. No longer be able to cook Chargers of Behemoths was a huge loss, and overall, there was problems with the new rework of the flame. So if they're going to do flamethrowers overall, maybe it'll bring those weapons up, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen a single person use any of the flamethrower weapons since maybe day 2 of the War Bond launch. Like, after they changed the flamethrowers, everyone threw all of them aside. I don't see them hardly at all. So I think it is good to see them working on all of them and not just focusing on, okay, your flamethrower can cook Chargers again, but that doesn't fix the problem. So it does look like they are fixing the problem overall. And if you've played recently and got access to the, or guess early access to the Orbital Flame Barrage, the Orbital Napalm Barrage, you can see what those flames can do. If the rework is something like that, I am very excited for it. All right, part 2 of the update. Our next update containing all these changes and more details is scheduled to go live on September 17th. We value your feedback and are always looking for ways to improve our community engagement. Stay tuned for more updates in the coming weeks as we work together to make Helldivers 2 the best it can be. We'll be back on 17th of September with more details. And then they give us an FAQ, such as what does a balancing pass entail, how are you conducting it. It's a lot of what we already know: analyze player feedback, internal external play tests, all that sort of thing. The keywords here are such as weapons that are underperforming or overperforming, and make precise adjustments. This does mean it looks like they are going to be bringing nerfs to this patch, which again, I know brings the doom and gloom out of people. I'm hopeful that there's not much left to bring down to a bad level. So I don't think we're going to see too many nerfs. They might hit like the breaker again, because we see that was still being used a lot. And I wouldn't be surprised if after this playtest that the Orbital Napalm Barrage also gets a nerf. So I do think we are going to see a few nerfs, so do be prepared for that. But I think overall it's going to be a lot of buffs, especially to the stratagems. Then they mentioned the beta testing, and this is actually really interesting. They did say they conducted closed beta tests the last 2 weekends. We're starting small to ensure everything runs smoothly. There have been a test bed for program. We intended to expand in the future and invite a wider variety of testers to playtest our upcoming updates. It'll take some time to get the infrastructure in order, but the intent is that these tests will find the missteps before we release them to the player base at large, providing a better experience for all players. There was a guy on the Reddit who said that he was, messing around with files and looking into the back end, and did see that there is specifically a new version of the game, which means that there is a separate environment for testing, which is what people have asked for. Like, hey, can you test these things before sending it to actual live and seeing the flaws? So they do have beta testing going. I don't know that anyone from, like streamers or any actual players were invited. I do believe that it was only their internals this time around for what the guy on Reddit was saying. Take that with a grain of salt, but it is happening. And I would be super excited if players got to be a part of that voicing in the future. Please, Arrowhead, pick me. And finally, one last FAQ about when do we actually see this stuff go live, and that is going to be September 17th, as they said earlier. So overall, there is some good information here. Like I said, I was expecting a little bit more like nitty gritty details rather than the stuff we already knew, that they were reworking chargers, they were reworking the way anti-tank works and penetration work. Those are all things we kind of already knew. So I was hoping for a little bit more in-depth, crunchy information here, but this hasn't deterred my hope and hype for the 17th. I truly think this next patch is going to be awesome. Let them cook, as the kids say. I do think we're going to see some good things coming if we continue to support the devs. We continue to be optimistic. I think going into the 17th, we're going to get something good. On top of that, there is one other leak going around that I'm going to talk about. So spoilers, if you don't want spoilers, click off now. Have a blessed day. Bye. Let's talk about the Illuminate. So the Illuminate popped up on the map for some people for a brief second. So much so, a bunch of people reporting on it, screenshots leaked. This sort of thing is what we do usually see from Arrowhead, where they intentionally leak some things in missions, let some players see it, and then people see it and talk about it in the forums, take it to game journalists, all that sort of thing. This is not out of line for them, so I don't think this was a mistake. I think they're going to launch the Illuminate on the 17th. They're going to say, hey, you asked for this, so here's a patch with a whole bunch of reworks. Here's a bunch of buffs. Here's a bunch of changes. Why don't you go test those on a new enemy that they've been teasing for a while? Definitely some build up to it with like the gloom. We've got the black hole still. We've got the gloom going towards the black hole. I truly think we're going to get the Illuminate on the 17th. So that's only going to build up the hype. And I think it's truly a brilliant move, because I know people are sick of hearing it, but Space Marine 2 comes out. So yeah, go play Space Marine 2, get your fill of it. But on the 17th, come back and fight new foes, and that'll bring people back into the game. I think that's their intent. I think that's a good move. And I'm really hyped that they're teasing at it now, just like they've always done. And we got to see the Illuminate, if only for a brief second. As always, leave your comments down below. Do you think this patch is going to bring a bunch of people back? Do you think we're going to see the Illuminate? Is this what you wanted? Is this not what you wanted? Leave it down below. And as always, have a blessed day.